Welcome to Mr. Ashbourne Golden Narrative, where we explore the complex emotions of real human relationships. If you enjoy stories about imperfect people finding their way to forgiveness and love, please consider subscribing for more emotional narratives like this one. Now let's begin. I took my daughter to her sports tryout, and witnessed her billionaire father introducing another child as his only child. "Mommy, do I look okay?" My daughter's voice trembled as she adjusted her soccer cleats for the third time. 9 years old, and already she carried the weight of wanting to be perfect. "You look amazing, sweetheart," I whispered, kneeling beside her in the parking lot of Riverside Athletics Academy. The facility gleamed with wealth: pristine fields, glass pavilions, parents and designer athleisure sipping lattes that cost more than my grocery budget. We didn't belong here. But Lucia had earned this tryout through sheer talent, and I'd be damned if I let my bank account determine her future. "Remember, just have fun out there. You're already a star to me." She nodded, her dark ponytail bouncing, and for a moment I saw him, the shape of her eyes, the determined set of her jaw. Features that haunted me every single day for 9 years. We walked toward the registration tent, Lucia's small hand tight in mine. That's when I heard it. A journalist with a press badge and camera crew had cornered someone near the main pavilion. My stomach dropped when I recognized who. Scott Frost stood in his tailored suit, every inch the billionaire philanthropist, a young girl with blonde curls clutching his hand. A woman I didn't recognize, elegant, dripping in wealth, stood beside him with her hand possessively on his shoulder. "Mr. Frost," the journalist's voice carried across the parking lot, "your donation to Riverside Athletics Academy is extraordinary. As a father yourself, what inspires this level of commitment to youth sports?" My feet stopped moving. I couldn't look away. Scott's smile was warm, practiced, perfect for cameras. Being a father changes everything. It gives you perspective on what truly matters. He lifted the little girl onto his hip and she giggled, wrapping her arms around his neck. "This is my daughter, Sienna. She's 7 years old and the absolute center of my universe." "Beautiful family," the journalist said, gesturing to include the elegant woman. "And I understand congratulations are in order? You recently announced your engagement to Vivian Laurent, correct?" The woman, Vivian, smiled radiantly. "Yes, we're getting married next spring. Sienna will be our flower girl." "Wonderful. Now, Mr. Frost, for our feature on philanthropic fathers in Portland's tech scene, can you speak to how fatherhood has reshaped your priorities?" This was it. The moment where he could mention that families come in different forms. That fatherhood might be more complicated than it appeared. Instead, Scott looked directly into the camera, his voice clear and unwavering. "Sienna is my only child and she's everything to me. Every decision I make, every company I build, every dollar I invest, it's all for her future. She's taught me what it means to love something more than your own ambitions." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Being her father is the greatest accomplishment of my life. Nothing else even comes close. My only child." The words echoed in my skull like a death knell. The reporter smiled. "That's beautiful. And Ms. Laurent, you must be excited about blending your family?" Vivian laughed, the sound like crystal. "Well, Sienna is Scott's biological daughter from a previous relationship, but I've been in her life since she was 3. She's as much mine as his. We're very much a family unit already, the wedding will just make it official." The registration form slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the pavement. Lucia tugged my hand urgently. "Mom? Mom, you're squeezing too hard. That hurts." I loosened my grip immediately, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the scene unfolding 20 yards away. The camera crew was getting B-roll now, Scott crouching beside Sienna, pointing toward the soccer fields, both of them laughing. Vivian checked her enormous engagement ring, the diamond catching the sunlight. The journalist scribbled notes. "My only child. Not one of my children. Not the daughter I'm raising. Not even a careful deflection. A complete, public, recorded erasure of Lucia's existence." "Mommy?" Lucia's voice had gone small, frightened. "Why are you crying?" I hadn't realized I was. Tears streamed down my face, hot and bitter and unstoppable. Because standing right there, giving an interview that would probably be featured in Portland Business Weekly or some tech blog, was the man I'd loved completely. The man I'd protected from the burden of fatherhood. The man whose child held my hand at this very moment. And he'd just declared to cameras, to journalists, to anyone who would listen. He had only one daughter and her name was Sienna. How do you explain that kind of betrayal to a 9-year-old? How do you tell your daughter that the father she's asked about for years, the father you've carefully painted as distant but loving, absent but not by choice, just publicly denied her existence. Mom, you're scaring me. Lucia's eyes were wide, filling with tears of her own. What's wrong? Did something bad happen? Everything was wrong. I knelt down, forcing myself to breathe, to think, to not completely fall apart in a parking lot full of Portland's elite while my daughter watched. I'm okay, baby. I saw someone I used to know and it surprised me. That's all. Who? Lucia looked around, following my previous line of sight. She landed on Scott, still being interviewed, still playing the devoted single father to his only child. That man? The one talking to the camera people? My throat closed. Yes, an old friend. From a long time ago. Lucia studied my face with that unnerving perception she'd inherited from him. He made you sad. It's complicated, sweetheart. Do you want to leave? Her small hand touched my wet cheek, and the tenderness of the gesture nearly broke me. We can leave if you want. I don't need to try out. God, she was so good. So kind. So much better than either of her parents deserved. No, I said firmly, standing up and retrieving the fallen registration form. You earned this tryout and we're not leaving. You're going to go out on that field and show everyone how amazing you are. Even if your father never sees it. Even if he's already decided his only child is the one he chose, not the one I kept from him. Are you sure? Lucia asked, uncertainty flickering across her face. I'm sure. I took her hand again, gentler this time. Come on. Let's get you registered. As we walked toward the tent, I heard Scott's voice one more time, answering another question. Do I want more children after the wedding? Honestly, no. Sienna's enough for me. I can pour all my love and resources into giving her the best life possible. Vivian and I both agree, quality over quantity, you know? The journalist laughed appreciatively. Vivian nodded in elegant agreement. I kept walking, kept breathing, kept functioning. Because what else could I do? The damage was done. The words were recorded. And in 90 minutes, when the tryouts began, Lucia would be on the same field as the sister she didn't know she had. Playing under the eyes of a father who just told the world she didn't exist. We joined the registration line. My hands shook as I filled out forms, hyper-aware of Scott's presence across the field. He was talking to the academy director now, all charm and confidence, his hand resting possessively on Sienna's shoulder. Vivian stood beside him, her engagement ring catching the light as she gestured, clearly comfortable in her role as soon-to-be stepmother. Next. I startled, realizing we'd reached the front of the line. Name? The volunteer's smile was practiced, efficient. Lucia Navarro, I managed. The woman's fingers paused over her keyboard. And parent or guardian? Mira Navarro. I'm her mother. Something flickered in the woman's expression, recognition perhaps, or curiosity. This academy catered to Portland's elite. Single mothers with off-brand athletic wear stood out like weeds in a manicured garden. Wonderful. Lucia, you're in Group C for tryouts. They'll start in 20 minutes. Lucia beamed. Thank you. As we walked toward the designated field, I tried to steer us away from Scott's orbit. But the universe, or fate or cosmic justice, had other plans. Sienna's also in Group C, I heard Vivian say behind us. Isn't that wonderful, darling? My stomach dropped. Lucia would be trying out alongside her half-sister. A sister she didn't even know existed. A sister whose father claimed her as his only child. Could this day get any worse? The answer apparently was yes. As the girls gathered on the field, parents were directed to observation areas along the sidelines. I positioned myself as far from Scott as possible, which lasted all of 3 minutes before the academy director stepped up to a microphone. Parents, if I could have your attention. We have a very special guest with us today. Scott Frost, founder and CEO of Apex Innovations, has generously sponsored our new athletics wing. Mr. Frost, would you like to say a few words? My blood turned to ice. Scott strode to the microphone with the easy confidence of a man who owned every room he entered. He looked good, infuriatingly good. Success suited him. The years had added definition to his features, a certain gravitas that came with power and wealth. Thank you all for being here, his voice carried across the field, smooth and authoritative. Athletics teaches children invaluable lessons about perseverance, teamwork, and pushing beyond their perceived limitations. As a father myself, my nails dug into my palms. I understand the importance of investing in our children's futures. My daughter Sienna is trying out today, and watching her pursue her passions reminds me why opportunities like this matter. Everything I do for her, my one and only. The words landed like physical blows. Applause rippled through the crowd. Vivian gazed at him with adoration, her hand resting on her heart in a gesture that screamed future wife. Sienna waved from the field and he waved back, every inch the devoted father. I wanted to scream. To stand up and shout the truth to everyone assembled. You have another daughter. She's standing 20 feet from Sienna, and you don't even know she exists. But I didn't. Because Lucia was watching the tryouts with fierce concentration, unaware of the bomb ticking in her family tree. When had protecting my daughter become synonymous with swallowing poison? The tryout began. I forced myself to focus on Lucia, to cheer for every skillful move, every goal she blocked as goalkeeper. She was extraordinary, quick reflexes, fearless dives, natural leadership as she directed her temporary teammates. Pride warred with anguish in my chest. Beside her on the field, Sienna played forward. Aggressive, talented, clearly well coached. The two girls had no idea they shared DNA, that their features echoed each other in subtle ways only a parent might notice. Your daughter's quite good. I turned to find Vivian standing beside me, her smile warm but evaluating. Thank you, I managed. So is yours. Oh, Sienna's technically Scots from a previous relationship, but I've been raising her since she was a toddler. Her biological mother wasn't in the picture, so I'm the only mother she's known. Vivian extended a perfectly manicured hand, her engagement ring impossible to miss. I'm Vivian Laurent. Soon to be Vivian Frost. Of course she was. Vivian Laurent. Even her name sounded like old money. Mira Navarro. I shook her hand, feeling like an imposter in my Target leggings and clearance rack jacket. Navarro, Vivian repeated thoughtfully. That's a beautiful name. Is Lucia's father here today? The question was innocent, probably just polite conversation. But it detonated in my chest like a grenade. No. It's just us. Oh. Vivian's expression shifted to practiced sympathy. Single motherhood must be challenging. You're very brave. I can't imagine doing this without Scott's support, financially and emotionally. Having a partner makes all the difference. Brave. The word tasted like ash. There was nothing brave about the choices I'd made, the secrets I'd kept. We manage, I said tightly. Well, if you ever need resources, single parent support groups, scholarship opportunities, let me know. Part of my role on the Academy board is connecting families with assistance programs. Her tone was kind but subtly condescending, the charity of the wealthy toward the struggling. Before I could respond, a whistle blew on the field. The tryout was over. Girls began streaming toward their parents, faces flushed with exertion and excitement. Lucia reached me first, throwing her arms around my waist. Mom, did you see? I blocked 3 goals. I saw everything, baby. You were incredible. Over her head, I watched Scott scoop Sienna up, spinning her around as she laughed. Vivian joined them, the 3 of them forming a perfect family portrait. Successful father, elegant fiancé, beloved daughter. The image carved itself into my memory, everything I'd denied Lucia. Mommy? Lucia pulled back, her face scrunched in concern. Why are you crying again? I hadn't realized I was. I swiped at my cheeks hastily. Happy tears, sweetheart. I'm just so proud of you. She studied me with the unnerving perception children possess. You keep looking at that man. Do you know him? My heart stopped. What man? The one who talked at the microphone. You stare at him like you're sad. How did you explain a decade of complicated history to a 9-year-old? How did you admit that the man she'd been watching was the father she'd asked about countless times? The absent presence in every school form that required 2 parent signatures. He's just someone I used to know. A long time ago. Oh. Lucia accepted this with the easy resilience of childhood. Can we get ice cream on the way home? I'm starving. Absolutely. You earned it. As we walked toward the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind us. Excuse me? Miss Navarro? I turned. Scott Frost stood 10 feet away, Sienna's hand in his, Vivian beside him looking mildly curious. Our eyes met. I watched recognition dawn slowly, confusion, then shock, then something that looked painfully like horror as his gaze dropped to Lucia standing beside me. He saw it immediately. The dark eyes that mirrored his own. The determined jawline. The way she stood with her weight on one leg, a habit he'd had at her age. Mira? His voice cracked on my name. Mira Navarro? Hello, Scott. I kept my tone neutral, aware of 4 young ears listening to every word. You're in Portland? Seattle, I thought you were still in Seattle. I moved here 2 years ago. Better opportunities. His eyes kept returning to Lucia, taking inventory, calculating. I could see the mental arithmetic happening, her age, the timing of our breakup, the math that couldn't be denied. This is your daughter? The question came out strangled. Yes. Lucia, say hello to Mr. Frost. Lucia extended her hand politely, just as I'd taught her. Nice to meet you, sir. Your speech was really good. I liked what you said about pushing beyond limitations. Scott shook her hand mechanically, his face pale beneath his tan. How old are you, Lucia? 9. Almost 10 in March. I watched the last piece click into place. March. Exactly 9 months and 2 weeks after our final night together. Scott. Vivian's voice held a note of confusion. Do you know these people? He seemed incapable of finishing the sentence. Sienna tugged on his hand. Daddy, I'm tired. Can we go home now? The word daddy seemed to snap him back to reality. He looked between Lucia and Sienna, his expression a complicated tangle of emotions I couldn't begin to parse. Of course, princess. He lifted Sienna onto his hip, his movements automatic. To me, his voice dropped low and urgent. We need to talk. Please. There's a cafe 2 blocks from here. Can you meet me in 20 minutes? Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to protect Lucia from whatever revelation or confrontation was about to unfold. But his eyes, desperate, pleading, wore down my defenses. Lucia and I have plans. Please, Mira. 20 minutes. I'm begging you. When had Scott Frost ever begged for anything? I looked down at my daughter, whose curious gaze moved between us. All right. 20 minutes. The cafe was upscale and quiet, with a play area where Lucia happily entertained herself with provided tablets and coloring supplies. I'd positioned us at a corner table with clear sight lines to her, unwilling to let her out of my view for even a moment. Scott arrived precisely 19 minutes after we'd parted. He came alone. Where's your family? I asked as he sank into the chair across from me. Vivian took Sienna home. I told her I'd run into an old colleague and needed to discuss business. Is that what I am? An old colleague? The bitterness in my voice made him flinch. Good. He should flinch. Mira, please. I need you to tell me. He stopped, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of frustration I remembered too well. Is Lucia mine? The question hung between us like a blade. I could lie. Could protect Lucia from this man who just publicly claimed another child as his only one. Could preserve the safe, small world we'd built together. But I was so tired of lying. Yes. The single word seemed to steal all the air from the room. Scott's eyes closed. His hands gripped the table edge so tightly his knuckles went white. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Why didn't you tell me? You made it very clear that children weren't in your 5-year plan. That they were incompatible with your ambitions. That was a conversation about timing, not... He broke off, shaking his head. You should have told me anyway, Mira. You should have given me the choice. Like you gave Lucia the choice to be erased today? The words came out sharper than I intended, but the wound was too fresh. You stood in front of cameras and journalists and called Sienna your only child. Your one and only. Do you have any idea what that would have done to Lucia if she'd understood? The color drained from his face. I didn't know. That's the point, Scott. You didn't know because I didn't tell you. And I didn't tell you because you were very explicit about not wanting children to interfere with your plans. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a fierce whisper. I did what I thought was best. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have told you. But you don't get to act wounded when you've spent the last 9 years building a life, complete with a fiancé and a daughter you publicly celebrate, while the child you didn't know about has been asking me why her daddy doesn't want to meet her. Silence fell between us, heavy with accusations and regrets. Across the cafe, Lucia looked up and waved. I waved back, forcing a smile. She's beautiful, Scott said quietly. She looks like you. She looks like you. Everyone who knows me says so. He absorbed this, pain etched into every line of his face. What's she like? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected anger, demands, maybe even legal threats. Not this genuine desire to know his daughter. She's brilliant, top of her class in everything. Wants to be an engineer or an astronaut, she can't decide which. She's kind almost to a fault. Last month she gave her birthday money to a classmate whose family lost their home in a fire. I felt my throat tighten. She asks about you sometimes. Her father. I've always told her you live far away, that you would love her if you knew her, that your absence isn't her fault. It's not her fault. Scott's voice cracked. God, Mira, none of this is her fault. It's mine. I was so obsessed with building something great that I missed. He gestured helplessly toward Lucia. I missed everything that actually matters. What happens now? I asked, suddenly exhausted. I want to know her. Be part of her life. If you'll let me. And Vivian? Sienna? How do they fit into this scenario? You're getting married in the spring, Scott. You're building a life with them. Scott's jaw tightened. Vivian and I, our relationship is complicated. We got engaged for the wrong reasons. Business connections, social compatibility, her relationship with Sienna. But there's no real foundation there. No genuine connection. Don't you dare blow up your engagement and then blame it on us, I said sharply. Lucia doesn't need that guilt. I'm just saying this, discovering Lucia, it's forced me to confront truths I've been avoiding. About what I really want from life. About whether I'm building something real or just something that looks good from the outside. That's not my problem to solve for you. I know. He met my eyes directly. I'm just asking for the chance to know my daughter. I'll handle Vivian. I'll handle the complications. But please, Mira, don't keep Lucia from me out of anger at my mistakes. The vulnerability in his voice, the genuine uncertainty, it reminded me of the man I'd fallen in love with years ago. Before success and ambition had consumed him. We take it slow, I said finally. Very slow. She doesn't know who you are yet. We'll start with you as an old friend of Mom's who wants to get to know her. If, and only if, she's comfortable, we can tell her the truth eventually. How long is eventually? However long it takes for me to trust that you won't disappear when fatherhood gets inconvenient. Or when it conflicts with your wedding plans. The accusation hung between us. Scott nodded slowly, accepting the terms. All right. Your rules. I'll follow them. He paused. Can I ask one thing? What? Don't keep her from me as punishment for my mistakes. Whatever anger you have toward me, and you have every right to it, please don't let it affect Lucia's chance to know her father. The request was fair even if it stung. I won't, I promised. But Scott? If you hurt her, if you make promises you don't keep, if you treat her like she's less important than Sienna or your business or your wedding plans, I will end this. Permanently. Understood. He stood, then hesitated. Thank you, Mira. For raising her. For doing it alone when I should have been there. After he left, I sat alone with my coffee, wondering if I just made the biggest mistake of my life, or finally corrected one from 10 years ago. The first month of Scott's involvement was careful, choreographed. He'd take Lucia to museums, parks, coding classes, always returning her exactly on time, always asking my permission for everything. Lucia warmed to him gradually. Mom's friend Scott became simply Scott, and I watched their connection grow with a mixture of joy and dread. Then came the first real explosion. It was a Saturday afternoon. Scott was supposed to take Lucia to the Science Museum, their third outing alone. He'd pick her up at 2, bring her home by 5. At 2:15 my phone rang. Mira, slight change of plans. Scott's voice was casual, unconcerned. Vivian brought Sienna to the museum. She saw my social media post and thought it would be nice for the girls to meet properly. Isn't that great? My blood turned to ice. You did what? I know we said slow, but they're already here and Lucia seems fine with it. Put her on the phone. Right now. A pause, then Lucia's voice, small and uncertain. Mom? Baby, are you okay? I guess. Scott's daughter is here. Sienna. And there's a fancy lady who keeps staring at me weird. What's she saying to you? Nothing to me. But she's asking Scott a lot of questions in a whisper voice. And Sienna keeps asking me stuff. What kind of questions? Like why I never visit Scott's house. And why nobody told her Scott had other friends with kids. And, Lucia's voice dropped to a whisper. Mom, the fancy lady looks really mad. My vision went red. Lucia, honey, put Scott back on. Right now. Mira. You have exactly 10 minutes to get my daughter to the museum entrance, or I'm calling the police and reporting a kidnapping. Do you understand me? That's not fair. 9 minutes and 50 seconds. I hung up, grabbed my keys and drove to the museum in a rage I hadn't felt in years. When I arrived, Lucia stood at the entrance with Scott, her face blotchy from crying. Sienna and Vivian were nowhere in sight. Get in the car, baby, I said gently to Lucia. She fled to my SUV without a word. I turned on Scott with fury that made him physically step back. You ambushed my 9-year-old daughter. You exposed her to your fiancé without warning, without preparation, without considering for 1 second how that might feel for Lucia. Vivian showed up. I didn't plan this. I don't care if the Pope himself showed up. You had one job: keep Lucia safe and comfortable. Instead, you threw her into a situation where she's being interrogated by a 7-year-old and scrutinized by a woman who has every reason to see her as a threat. It was an accident. No, Scott. An accident is spilling juice. This was negligence. This was you prioritizing your convenience over my daughter's emotional well-being. I stepped closer, my voice dropping to something dangerous. You want to know why I didn't tell you about Lucia? This right here. Because when it's inconvenient, when it requires actual sacrifice and planning, you take shortcuts. That's not fair. Lucia is in my car crying because a stranger interrogated her and your fiancé looked at her like she was a problem to be solved. You think that's fair? Scott's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I should have called you immediately, should have left when Vivian showed up. I just thought. You didn't think. That's the problem. I turned toward my car, then stopped. Don't contact us for a while. I need to figure out how to explain this to Lucia, and I need to decide if I can trust you enough to continue this arrangement. Mira, please. I'll call you when I'm ready. If I'm ready. I drove away, leaving him standing in the museum parking lot, the picture of devastation. In the rearview mirror, Lucia's silent tears destroyed me. That night, after ice cream and her favorite movie and a long bath, Lucia finally asked the question I'd been dreading. Mom, why was that fancy lady so mad that I was there? We were sitting on her bed, her room dim except for her constellation nightlight, the one that projected stars across her ceiling. That's complicated, honey. Is she Scott's girlfriend? His fiancée. They're getting married. Oh. Lucia processed this. And Sienna is his daughter? Yes. But I'm not supposed to be? Is that why the fancy lady was mad? The perception in that question broke my heart. No, baby. You're not. It's not that you're not supposed to exist. It's just complicated grown-up stuff. Sienna said something weird. Lucia picked at her comforter. She said Scott told her she's his only kid. But then she asked why he was spending so much time with me if I'm not his kid. She seemed confused. My chest tightened. Of course Sienna was confused. Her father had publicly declared her his only child, then suddenly started spending time with another girl who looked remarkably like him. Did the fancy lady hear that? Yeah. That's when she got really mad and took Sienna away. Then Scott looked scared and told me we had to leave. I pulled Lucia closer, needing the contact as much as she did. I'm so sorry you got caught in the middle of that, sweetheart. That wasn't fair to you. Mom? Her voice was very small. Am I Scott's kid? This was it. The moment where I either told her the truth or kept lying to protect her a little longer. But she'd asked directly. And she deserved honesty. Yes, honey. Scott is your father. Your biological dad. Silence. Then, the man at the tryout? The one who made you cry. Yes. Why didn't he know about me? This was the hard part. The moment where my choices came under the harshest judgment possible. My daughter's. When I found out I was pregnant with you, your dad and I weren't together anymore. He told me he wasn't ready for children, that his work was too important. I chose my words carefully. I made the choice not to tell him because I thought it was protecting everyone. I thought you'd be better off without a father who might resent you, and I thought he'd be better off focusing on his dreams. But you were wrong. Not an accusation. Just a statement of fact from a 9-year-old who just had her world shattered. Yes, baby. I was wrong. I should have told him and let him make his own choice. I'm so sorry. Lucia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Does he want me now? Or does he just feel bad? The question broke my heart. He wants you, Lucia. Very much. He's just learning how to be a dad. And today he made a big mistake because he's still figuring it out. Is that why you were so mad at him? Yes. He should have protected you better. Should have made sure you were ready before putting you in that situation with Sienna and his fiancée. Another long silence. Then, what happens now? Do I have to meet them again? Not until you're ready. And not unless it's planned carefully so nobody gets hurt. What about the fancy lady? She's going to marry him. Does that mean she'll be like my stepmom? The complications were piling up faster than I could address them. I don't know, honey. That depends on a lot of things. But right now, let's just focus on you and how you're feeling. How are you feeling? Lucia thought about it seriously. Confused. And kind of mad. And she hesitated. Kind of curious? Like, I have a sister I didn't know about. That's weird but also kind of cool. And Scott seems nice when he's not making mistakes. Those are all completely normal feelings. Am I going to have to live with him sometimes? Like Sienna does? Is that something you'd want? I don't know. Her voice was so small. I don't really know him. And I definitely don't know the fancy lady. It would be weird. I pulled her into my lap even though she was getting too big for it and held her while she cried. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears for the life she'd known that would never be quite the same. Nothing has to change unless you want it to, I promised. You get to decide how much or how little you want Scott in your life. This is your choice, Lucia. Always. What if I don't want him around at all? The question surprised me. Then he won't be. I promise. She nodded against my shoulder, exhausted from the emotional toll of the day. After she fell asleep, I sat in her room watching her breathe, wondering how I'd managed to make such a catastrophic mess of something that should have been simple. Scott called 17 times that night. I didn't answer any of them. 3 days later, I finally answered one of Scott's calls. Mira, thank God. I've been losing my mind. Lucia needs space from you. Silence on the other end. For how long? I don't know. She's confused and hurt and not sure she even wants a father in her life. Your stunt at the museum, letting Vivian interrogate her, letting Sienna ask questions she wasn't prepared to answer, did real damage, Scott. I know I messed up. Vivian was furious afterward. She's demanding answers about who Lucia is, why I've been spending time with her. The whole thing's blown up into. I don't care about your problems with Vivian. That's between you and your fiancé. My concern is Lucia, who came home in tears because she got caught in your messy situation. You're right. I'm sorry. He took a shaky breath. Can I apologize to her? Please? Let me explain. No. You don't get to make yourself feel better by apologizing to a 9-year-old. You want to fix this? You give her space. You respect her timeline, not yours. What if she decides she doesn't want to see me at all? The fear in his voice was palpable, but I couldn't let it sway me. Then you live with that consequence. The same way I've lived with the consequences of my choices for 10 years. Another long silence. You're right, he said finally, his voice heavy. I'll respect her space. But Mira, can you at least tell her that I'm sorry? That I never meant to hurt her? I'll tell her. But that's all I can promise. After I hung up, I stood at my kitchen window watching rain streak down the glass, and wondered if I'd just ended Scott's relationship with Lucia permanently. The next 2 months were strange. Scott respected my request. No calls, no visits, no pressure. But he didn't disappear entirely. Flowers arrived at our apartment every week with cards that said simply, "Thinking of you, Lucia." No pressure. Scott. A package arrived containing a telescope Lucia had mentioned wanting during one of their museum visits. Expensive, professional grade with a note. For all those stars you love. You don't have to thank me. Just enjoy them. Her school received an anonymous donation that resulted in their science program receiving new equipment. I knew who it was from. He was present without being intrusive. Thoughtful without being manipulative. And slowly, grudgingly, Lucia's anger began to soften. Mom? She asked one evening while we were stargazing with her new telescope. Do you think Scott is sad that I don't want to see him? Probably, I admitted. But he understands he hurt you. He's trying to respect your feelings. He sent me this telescope. He did. It's a really good telescope. Like really expensive, I think. It is. She was quiet for a moment, tracking Jupiter across the sky. Maybe I could write him a letter? I'm not ready to see him, but maybe I could tell him about the planets I've found with the telescope he gave me? My heart swelled with pride at her emotional maturity, something she'd definitely gotten from me, not her father. I think he'd love that, baby. That night, Lucia spent an hour composing a letter. When she showed it to me, I had to blink back tears. Dear Scott, thank you for the telescope. It's the best present anyone ever gave me. I found Jupiter and 3 of its moons last night. Mom says they're called the Galilean moons because someone named Galileo discovered them. Did you know that? I'm still upset about what happened at the museum. You should have told me Sienna was my sister before she asked me weird questions. And you should have told me your fiancé would be there. That wasn't fair. But Mom says everyone makes mistakes and the important thing is if they learn from them. So I guess I'm writing to say I'm not ready to see you yet, but maybe someday I will be. Also, Sienna is my sister? That's weird but kind of cool. Does she like space too? From Lucia. What happened with your fiancé after the museum? Mom won't tell me, but I heard her telling Aunt Kate you probably got in big trouble. I mailed it the next day, smiling slightly at Lucia's postscript. She was right. I'd been deliberately vague about the Vivian situation, not wanting to burden her with adult drama. Scott's response came within 48 hours. Dear Lucia, I did know about the Galilean moons. Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Europa is my favorite because scientists think it might have an ocean under its icy surface, which means it could possibly support life. You're absolutely right that I should have told you about Sienna before she met you. That was wrong and I'm very sorry. I'm still learning how to be a good father and sometimes I make mistakes. But I promise I'm trying to learn from them. Sienna does like space. Not as much as you, but she thinks astronauts are cool. Maybe one day when you're ready, you could tell her about the things you've discovered with your telescope. About your PS. Yes, I did get in trouble. My fiancé was very upset that I'd been spending time with you without explaining who you are. We're working through some complicated things right now. But that's adult stuff you don't need to worry about. I miss spending time with you, but I understand you need space. I'll be here whenever you're ready, even if that's not for a long time. Take care of yourself and keep looking at the stars. Love, Scott. PS. That's the first time I've ever signed anything "Love, Scott" to one of my children. I wanted you to know that. Lucia read the letter 3 times, then carefully folded it and put it in her desk drawer. He seems sad, she observed. He is, I confirmed. Good, she said, but there was less anger in it than before. He should be sad for a while. Very mature of you. She smiled slightly. I get it from you. The article appeared in Portland Business Weekly on a Tuesday morning. Tech Titan's secret daughter, Scott Frost's hidden child surfaces after 9 years. My phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. My boss. Lucia's school. My sister. Random numbers I didn't recognize. I opened the article with shaking hands. Scott Frost, CEO of Apex Innovations and one of Portland's most eligible bachelors, has been hiding a secret that threatens to derail his high-profile engagement to socialite Vivian Laurent. Sources close to the couple confirmed that Frost has a 9-year-old daughter he knew nothing about until recently, a child kept secret by the mother for nearly a decade. The revelation has caused significant strain on Frost's engagement to Laurent, heir to the Laurent luxury hotel empire. Laurent, who has been raising Frost's 7-year-old daughter Sienna as her own since the child was 3, reportedly discovered the existence of Frost's older biological child only recently, leading to what sources describe as explosive confrontations and questions about whether the wedding will proceed as planned. The mother, identified as Mira Navarro, a graphic designer currently employed at Horizon Creative, allegedly chose not to inform Frost of her pregnancy after their relationship ended 10 years ago. Questions about her motivations, financial, personal, or otherwise, remain unanswered as Navarro has declined all interview requests. Vivian is devastated, says a family friend who spoke on condition of anonymity. She's been planning this wedding for months, raising Sienna with Scott, building a life together. To discover he has another child he never mentioned, even though he claims he didn't know, has shaken her trust completely. This revelation comes at a particularly sensitive time for Frost, as Apex Innovations is in the final stages of a major acquisition. Industry insiders wonder if this personal scandal will affect investor confidence. It went on for 3 more paragraphs, each one painting me as either a gold digger who'd finally made her move or a vindictive ex who'd weaponized a child. Lucia found the article at school. Someone's parent had seen it and their child had told Lucia about it on the playground. She came home in tears. They're saying you kept me secret to hurt Scott. That you're a bad person. That she choked on the words, that I'm a scandal that ruined his wedding. I held her while she sobbed, fury building in my chest. This had Vivian's fingerprints all over it. The unnamed sources close to the couple. The emphasis on her hotel empire and her role raising Sienna. The strategic timing. The focus on the threatened wedding. She was punishing both of us, Scott for the betrayal, me for existing. My phone rang. Scott, did you see it? His voice was raw. Hard to miss. Vivian leaked it. I know it was her. She's furious about everything. About Lucia existing, about me not telling her sooner, about our engagement being in jeopardy. She's trying to destroy both of us. Well, she's succeeding. Lucia came home from school in tears because kids are calling her the reason you and Vivian might not get married. Scott swore viciously. I'm calling my lawyers. We'll issue a statement, sue for defamation. No. What? Issuing a statement just keeps this in the news cycle longer. Suing Vivian means dragging Lucia through depositions and court appearances and making this even bigger news. We ignore it. It'll blow over. Mira, they're calling you a gold digger? I don't care what they call me. I care about my daughter. Our daughter. And she doesn't need to be the center of a media circus while her father fights a public battle with his ex-fiancée. There was a pause. Ex-fiancée? Isn't she? After leaking this story? Yes, Scott said quietly. I ended the engagement 2 hours after the article came out. Vivian admitted she'd leaked it to protect Sienna's interests and to warn other women about your character. I told her she'd crossed an unforgivable line and returned the ring. How did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. Threats of limiting my time with Sienna, accusations that I chose you and Lucia over her and Sienna, promises that her family's lawyers would make my life hell. He sounded exhausted. It's going to get uglier before it gets better. What about Sienna? This affects her too. I know. She's confused and upset. Vivian told her that Lucia is my other daughter, and that's why I've been distracted. Sienna's processing the fact that she's not my only child anymore, which is... He broke off. It's hard for her. She went from being the center of my world to suddenly sharing that position. Does she blame Lucia? I don't know. Vivian's been carefully controlling what Sienna knows and how she frames it. But yes, I think there's some resentment there. I felt a pang of sympathy for Sienna, caught in the middle of adult drama through no fault of her own. How's Lucia? Scott asked. Devastated. Confused. Angry. Can I see her? Please? I know she's been writing me letters and I don't want to push, but I want her to know I'm on her side. That I'm not ashamed of her. That ending my engagement had nothing to do with her, it was about Vivian's actions. I hesitated. After 3 months of separation, was Lucia ready? I'll ask her. But Scott, if she says no, you respect it. Of course. Lucia surprised me by saying yes. I want to ask him about the article, she explained. And I want to know if he's embarrassed of me. And if Sienna hates me now. The vulnerability in her voice shattered me. Baby, he's not embarrassed of you. But yes, you can ask him yourself. The meeting happened at our apartment, neutral territory where Lucia felt safest. When I opened the door, Scott looked like he hadn't slept in days. Hi, Lucia, he said carefully, staying in the doorway until she invited him further. Hi. She sat on the couch, her body language closed off. I started to leave to give them privacy, but Lucia grabbed my hand. Stay, Mom. So I sat beside her, a protective barrier between my daughter and the man who kept hurting her, even unintentionally. I read your letters, Scott began. Every single one. I have them in a folder on my desk at work and I read them when I'm having a bad day. Lucia's expression softened slightly. I need you to know something, Scott continued, his voice thick with emotion. I'm not embarrassed of you. I'm not ashamed of you. The fact that I have a daughter as smart and kind and amazing as you is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Then why did that article say all those mean things about Mom? Why did it make it sound like we're bad people who ruined your life? Scott's jaw tightened. Because my ex-fiancée is angry with me and she wanted to hurt me by hurting you and your mom. Which makes her cruel and petty, but it doesn't make the things the article said true. Ex-fiancée? You're not getting married anymore? No. We ended our engagement. That relationship is over. Lucia processed this. Because of me? No, sweetheart. Because of choices Vivian made. She leaked that story to try to make your mom look bad and to punish me for not telling her about you sooner. That kind of cruelty toward a child, toward you, isn't something I can forgive. Does Sienna know? That you're not marrying Vivian anymore? Yes. She's confused and upset about it. Does she hate me? The question came out small and scared. Because you chose me over her mom? Scott knelt in front of the couch, bringing himself to Lucia's eye level. I didn't choose you over anyone. I chose to end a relationship that wasn't healthy. That's separate from my relationship with you or with Sienna. You're both my daughters. That doesn't change no matter what happens with Vivian. But Sienna probably blames me anyway. I don't know what Sienna's feeling right now. Her mom is controlling a lot of what she knows. But eventually, when things calm down, I hope you two can get to know each other properly. As sisters. Lucia was quiet for a long moment. I'm not ready to call you Dad yet, she said finally. And I don't want to stay at your house or anything. But, maybe we could go back to doing stuff together sometimes? Like museums and science stuff. The hope that bloomed on Scott's face was painful to witness. I would love that. More than anything. Okay. But if you mess up again, I'm done. For real this time. Understood. I'll do better. I promise. After Scott left, Lucia turned to me. Mom, do you think he really ended things with the fancy lady because she was mean about US? Or because he had to? I think probably both, I answered honestly. But the important thing is that he did end it. He made a choice that protected you, even though it complicated his life. That's kind of nice, actually. Yes, I agreed. It is. The second meeting between Lucia and Sienna happened a month later, this time carefully planned with weeks of preparation. Scott had asked if the girls could spend an afternoon together at a local park. Neutral territory, me present. Vivian declined to attend. Escape routes available if needed. I'd said yes reluctantly. What I hadn't anticipated was how hard this would be for Sienna. She'd gone from being Scott's only child, publicly declared, celebrated, the center of his world, to suddenly sharing him with a sister who was older, who understood complex things Sienna didn't, who'd been kept secret like she mattered more. The jealousy and hurt were immediate and painful to watch. Sienna arrived holding Scott's hand tightly, her face set in a stubborn expression I recognized from Lucia when she was feeling defensive. "Hi, Sienna," Lucia said carefully, clearly nervous. Sienna looked her up and down. "You're the secret sister." "I guess? I didn't know I was a secret. Daddy said you to his other family. Before me and Mommy." The way Sienna said it made it sound like an accusation. "Sienna," Scott said gently. "We talked about this. Lucia isn't from another family. She's your sister. You're both my daughters. But you didn't know about her. That's what Mommy said. You didn't know she existed until she showed up and ruined everything." My protective instincts flared, but Lucia spoke before I could intervene. "I didn't ruin anything," she said quietly but firmly. "I didn't even know Scott was my dad until a few months ago. Your mom is mad at my mom and at Scott. But that's not my fault. Mommy says your mom kept you a secret to hurt Daddy. That she wanted money." "That's not true," I cut in, unable to stay silent. "And Sienna, those are adult problems that have nothing to do with you or Lucia." Sienna's lower lip trembled. "But Daddy's not marrying Mommy anymore because of you. Because of the secret sister. And now Daddy's always busy with her instead of me." "I see you every week, Princess," Scott said, crouching beside her. "That hasn't changed." "Yes, it has. You missed my dance recital last week because you were writing letters to her." Tears spilled down Sienna's cheeks. "You always forget everything now. You only care about her because she's new and special and I'm just the one you already had." The anguish in her voice was devastating. This 7-year-old genuinely believed she'd been replaced. "That's not true, Sienna. I love you just as much." "No, you don't." She was crying fully now and every parent in the park was staring. "You used to say I was your only one. Your special girl. But now she's here and I'm not special anymore." She tore away from Scott and ran toward the parking lot. Scott looked between the direction Sienna had gone and Lucia, clearly torn about who needed him more. "Go," I told him. "We'll wait here." He ran after Sienna. Lucia's face was carefully blank, but I could see tears threatening. "She really hates me." "No, baby. She's jealous and scared and processing a lot of big feelings that are hard for a 7-year-old to handle." "Did I ruin her life? Is that my fault?" "No." I pulled her close. "None of this is your fault. The adults in this situation, me, Scott, Vivian, we made choices that affected you kids. That's on us, not you." "But she's right that I'm the reason they're not getting married." "No. Vivian's cruelty is the reason they're not getting married. Not you existing." Lucia nodded, but she looked unconvinced. Scott returned 10 minutes later, looking haggard. "Sienna's in the car. She wants to go home." "Is she okay?" "No. She's heartbroken. She feels like she's losing me, and I don't know how to make her understand she's not." He looked at Lucia. "I'm so sorry, Lucia. That wasn't fair to you." "It's okay. I get it. She's sad." "It's not okay." She said hurtful things. Scott ran his hand through his hair. "I need to work with Sienna on this. Help her understand that loving you doesn't mean I love her less. But right now she needs me." "We understand," I said. "Go take care of your daughter." Scott flinched slightly at the singular daughter, as if I'd deliberately excluded Lucia. But he didn't argue. After he left, Lucia was quiet on the drive home. That night she wrote a letter, something she'd done entirely on her own. "Dear Sienna, I know you're mad that Scott, your dad, our dad, is spending time with me. I get it. I'd probably be mad too if I were you. I don't want to take him away from you. I already went 9 years without a dad, so I know what that feels like and it's really lonely. I don't want you to feel like that. Maybe we could share him? Like he spends time with you on some days and me on other days? That way it's fair for both of us? Also, do you really like dancing? I'm terrible at it, but Mom makes me take lessons anyway." Maybe you could teach me sometime? If you want. I'm sorry his wedding to your mom got canceled. That's probably really confusing. But it's not because of me. Grown-ups are just complicated sometimes. From your sister if you want, Lucia. I mailed it without knowing if Sienna would ever read it or if Vivian would intercept it. Just when I thought things might stabilize, Scott made his second major mistake. It was Lucia's 10th birthday, a milestone she'd been excited about for months. She'd invited Scott specifically. A small party, just a few friends from school, pizza, cake, and a movie. Nothing fancy but important to her. He'd promised he'd be there at 3 p.m. sharp. 3 o'clock came and went. No Scott. 3:30, still nothing. 4 o'clock. Lucia kept checking the window, trying to pretend she wasn't watching for him. At 4:45, my phone finally rang. Mira, I'm so sorry. I'm stuck in a board meeting that ran over and I can't leave. You promised her. I know, but this acquisition is at a critical stage and if I leave now. You promised her, Scott. On her birthday. After everything she's been through. After working so hard to trust you again. I'll make it up to her. No. You won't. Because there's no making up for this. I looked at Lucia, who'd stopped pretending she wasn't listening, tears streaming down her face. You just taught my daughter that she ranks below your board meetings. Congratulations. You're officially the father I was afraid you'd be. Mira, please, I can leave in 30 minutes. Don't bother. The damage is done. I hung up. Lucia tried to hold it together for her friends, but the moment they left, she collapsed in my arms. He doesn't really want me, she sobbed. I'm just the kid he has to deal with because he found out about me. Sienna was right. I'm not special. I'm just extra. No, baby. Yes. If he wanted me, he would have been here. It's my birthday and he couldn't even show up. He probably wishes I just stayed a secret. I had no response. Because in that moment she was right. Scott had made a choice and he'd chosen wrong. Scott showed up at our apartment at 8 p.m., after Lucia had cried herself to sleep. I opened the door but blocked his entrance. How could you? My voice was eerily calm. After everything she's been through. After working so hard to trust you. How could you miss her birthday? The meeting ran long. I don't care. You should have left. You should have told your board that your daughter's birthday was non-negotiable. But you didn't because when it comes down to it, your company still matters more than she does. That's not true. Then prove it. Because right now, all you've proven is that I was right not to tell you about her 10 years ago. At least then her expectations weren't shattered repeatedly. Scott looked like I'd physically struck him. What do you want from me, Mira? To give up my company? To prove I can be a perfect father overnight? I'm trying. Try harder. I finally let the anger out, my voice rising. You're a brilliant businessman, Scott. You've built a billion-dollar company from nothing. Surely you can figure out how to show up for a 10-year-old's birthday party. I made a mistake. You've made multiple mistakes. And each one hurts her more because each one makes her believe she's not worth prioritizing. I stepped back. Don't contact us for a while. I need to figure out if this arrangement is doing more harm than good. You can't shut me out of her life. Watch me. I kept her from you for 9 years. I can do it again if it means protecting her from being constantly disappointed. I closed the door in his face. The next 2 months were awful. Scott respected my request for space this time, but I could see Lucia withdrawing. She stopped using her telescope, stopped writing letters, stopped asking about her father. She'd built walls and I'd helped her do it by cutting Scott out. But was I protecting her? Or was I teaching her that people who hurt you don't deserve second chances? The answer came from an unexpected source. My sister Kate, who visited from Seattle for Thanksgiving. You're making the same mistake again, she told me over wine after Lucia went to bed. What? Making decisions for everyone else. You decided 10 years ago that Scott wouldn't want Lucia. Now you're deciding he doesn't deserve another chance to prove himself. He missed her birthday, Kate. And it was awful and inexcusable. But Mira, he's trying. Is he perfect? Hell no. But he's showing up, not perfectly but consistently. He sends letters even though she doesn't write back. He sends gifts with no expectation of thanks. He ended his engagement rather than let Vivian hurt Lucia. He's in therapy learning how to balance work and fatherhood. How do you know about the therapy? He called me. Asked if I had advice on how to reach you since you won't answer his calls. We talked for 2 hours. I stared at her. You talked to Scott? He loves her, Mira. And I think, though you'd probably kill me for saying this, he still loves you. He's just terrible at showing it because he spent a decade prioritizing the wrong things. That doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. But it's context. And maybe, just maybe, Lucia deserves to decide for herself whether she wants to keep trying with her father, instead of you making that choice for her. Again. The words landed like a bomb. Had I been doing exactly what I'd accused Scott of? Making unilateral decisions about what was best, without considering what Lucia actually wanted? The next morning, I asked Lucia a question I should have asked months ago. Do you want to see Scott again? She looked up from her cereal, surprised. I thought you said we weren't seeing him anymore. I said I needed time to figure out if it was good for you. But I realized I should be asking you, not deciding for you. Lucia was quiet for a long time. He missed my birthday, she said finally. He did. And he let Sienna think I'm the reason her parents didn't get married. That was more complicated than that, but yes, he handled it poorly. And he messed up at the museum. He did. But. She trailed off, struggling with something. He also gave me a telescope. And writes me letters even though I stopped writing back. And Aunt Kate said he's in therapy trying to be better. And he ended things with the fancy lady who was mean about us. Do you miss him? I asked gently. Sometimes. Even though I'm mad at him. She looked at me with those eyes so like his. Is that weird? No, baby. That's called loving someone even when they disappoint you. It's one of the hardest parts of being human. Do you love him? Even though he disappoints you? The question caught me off guard, but I'd promised myself I'd be honest with her. I think I might, I admitted. Which is complicated and confusing and probably not very smart. Maybe smart isn't always the most important thing, Lucia said with wisdom beyond her years. Maybe sometimes you have to be brave instead. Out of the mouths of 10-year-olds. I called Scott that afternoon. We need to talk. In person. Can you meet me tomorrow night? Yes. His answer was immediate. Anywhere. Anytime. That cafe where we had our first conversation after the tryouts. 8 o'clock. Just you and me. I'll be there. Scott was waiting when I arrived, looking nervous in a way I'd never seen him, not even during our initial confrontation. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, I said, sitting down across from him. I'd wait years for the chance to talk to you again. His voice was raw, honest. Mira, I am so sorry. Let me talk first. Please. He nodded, pressing his lips together. I took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about the choices I've made. 10 years ago, I decided you wouldn't want Lucia, so I didn't tell you. Then 7 months ago, I decided you didn't deserve another chance after missing her birthday, so I cut you out again. You had every right. Maybe. But Kate pointed out that I keep making unilateral decisions about Lucia's life and yours, and she's right. I'm doing the exact thing I accused you of, prioritizing my own feelings over what's actually best for everyone involved. Scott leaned forward, hope and caution warring in his expression. Lucia wants to see you again, I continued. And I think, despite my anger and despite your mistakes, I want that too. But we need ground rules. Real ones with real consequences. Anything. I'll agree to anything. Don't agree until you hear the terms. I pulled out a handwritten list, feeling ridiculous but determined. 1. Lucia comes first. Not first among your children. First period. If you have a board meeting and she has a school play, you leave the meeting. If choosing her means your acquisition fails, you let it fail. Scott nodded seriously. Agreed. I've already started transitioning my role at Apex. I'm moving to chairman instead of CO. Fewer daily responsibilities, more flexibility. This surprised me. You're stepping down as CEO? Effective in 3 months. I've spent a decade building a company. I want to spend the next decade building relationships with my daughters. With both of them. This time I mean it. I studied his face, looking for signs he was just saying what I wanted to hear. But his expression was open, sincere. 2, I continued. You're honest with her about your limitations. If you can't promise something, you say so. No more over-promising and under-delivering. Agreed. 3, you continue therapy. Not just to deal with Lucia and Sienna, to deal with the workaholism and the way you use achievement to avoid emotional vulnerability. He flinched but nodded. I'm already in therapy. I've been for 3 months, but I'll keep going. As long as it takes. 4, Sienna's relationship with Lucia is their choice to figure out, not yours to force. You support whatever dynamic they develop, even if it's not the sister relationship you're hoping for. Agreed. And 5. I hesitated because this one was about me, not Lucia. 5. If you're doing this because you feel guilty or because you want to prove something to me or because you're trying to get back together with me, stop now. Lucia deserves a father who wants her for her, not as a means to an end. Scott reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. Lucia is the best thing that's ever happened to me, he said quietly. Not because she brought you back into my life, though that's a gift I don't deserve. Not because she's brilliant or kind or has my eyes. But because knowing her exists, knowing I helped create someone that remarkable, has forced me to confront the emptiness of everything I built before. The empire, the money, the reputation, none of it means anything compared to being her father. His voice cracked. I've made terrible mistakes. I'll probably make more. But I love her, Mira. And I'm trying every day to become someone worthy of that love. I blinked back tears. Okay, we'll try again. Slowly. With boundaries. And Scott, if you miss one more important event without a legitimate emergency, we're done. Permanently. I won't. I promise. I've restructured my entire life to make sure I won't. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything said and unsaid hanging between us. Can I ask you something? Scott said finally. Sure. That day at the tryouts when I said Sienna was my only child, if you could go back, would you have walked up and told me the truth right then? Publicly? I considered the question seriously. No. Because it would have hurt Lucia to learn that way. But I would have pulled you aside after and told you privately. Given you the chance to process before meeting her. Why didn't you? Because I panicked. Because seeing you with Vivian and Sienna, hearing you call her your only child, declare you didn't want more children, it confirmed every fear I'd had for 10 years. That you wouldn't have wanted Lucia. That she would have been a burden you resented. And now I know I was wrong. You would have wanted her. You would have struggled, hell you are struggling, but you would have tried. And that's what matters. Scott's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Can I see her? Tomorrow maybe? Yes. But Scott, start small. Build back slowly. Don't overwhelm her with grand gestures. Just show up consistently. I can do that. I will do that. The rebuilding was slow, deliberate, and more successful this time because both Scott and I had learned from our mistakes. Scott came to dinner once a week, helped with homework, attended every soccer game, school concert, science fair. He missed nothing. He also worked on his relationship with Sienna, making sure she knew she wasn't being replaced. Individual father-daughter dates. Dance class attendance. Art projects displayed in his home office. The sisters began writing letters to each other, careful, tentative correspondence that gradually warmed. They might never be close, but they were working toward mutual respect and occasional affection. Vivian remained hostile but eventually focused her energy on moving forward rather than punishing the past. She started dating someone from her own social circle and stopped using Sienna as a weapon. The custody arrangement was finalized. Sienna would spend equal time with both parents, and both homes would welcome Lucia when she wanted to visit. And me? I was watching the man I'd once loved transform into someone I could love again. Someone I was already starting to love, if I was honest. But I wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. It was Lucia's 11th birthday, exactly 1 year after Scott had missed her 10th. He showed up at 2:45 p.m., 15 minutes early, with a gift-wrapped telescope upgrade and a handmade card. The party was perfect. He helped set up, talked with parents, played games with the kids, and when Lucia blew out her candles he was right there beside me, singing off-key. After the other guests left, as we cleaned up together, Lucia asked the question I'd been half dreading, half hoping for. Are you and Scott going to get married? I dropped the paper plate I was holding. Scott, who'd been folding a tablecloth across the room, froze mid-fold. That's a complicated question, honey, I managed. It seems simple to me. You look at him like you like him. He looks at you like he really likes you. And you're always together now for my stuff. We're co-parenting. Mom, I'm 11, not stupid. You look at him the way people in movies look at each other before they kiss. Scott couldn't suppress his smile. Well? Lucia looked between us expectantly. Scott spoke before I could. That depends entirely on your mom. But for what it's worth, I'd like to. Someday. If she'd have me. My heart stopped. You would. Lucia's face lit up. I would. Your mom is the smartest, strongest, most remarkable woman I've ever known. I was an idiot to let her go the first time, and I've spent the last 2 years trying to become someone who deserves a second chance. He looked at me directly, and everything I'd been trying to protect myself from came rushing forward. But, he continued, his voice gentle, your mom has every reason not to trust me with her heart again. I broke it once. She's allowed to decide I don't get another opportunity. Lucia turned to me expectantly. Mom? This is a conversation for adults, baby, I said, my voice unsteady. How about you go get ready for bed and Scott and I will talk? She grinned, actually grinned, and bounced off to her room with zero subtlety, leaving Scott and me alone in our small kitchen, surrounded by birthday decorations and the weight of everything unspoken. You didn't have to say that in front of her, I said quietly. I meant every word. Scott. I love you, Mira. The words came out raw, unpolished. I never stopped loving you even when I was too much of an idiot to realize it. Even when I was engaged to Vivian, building a life that looked right from the outside. You've been the standard I measured everything against and everything fell short. I couldn't breathe. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight, he continued. I'm not even asking you to date me officially. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that maybe, someday we could be something again. Something better than we were before. Something built on honesty and presence and actual commitment instead of fear and ambition. You hurt me, I whispered. 10 years ago you made me feel like I wasn't enough. Like your dreams mattered more than our relationship. And then you did it again, missed Lucia's birthday for a board meeting. I know, and I'm sorry. I can't change the past, but I can promise you a different future. One where you and Lucia are my priority. Where I show up, not just physically but emotionally. Where I'm the partner and father you both deserve. I looked at this man, familiar yet transformed, broken down and rebuilt into something more genuine. I'm scared, I admitted. What if you revert? What if the company pulls you back in, or you realize family life is too mundane, or then you leave. You take Lucia and you walk away, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. He stepped closer. But Mira, I don't think that's going to happen. Because I've had a taste of what matters and I'm not going back. I stepped down as CEO. I'm in therapy 3 times a week. I've restructured my entire life around being present for my daughters, and for you if you'll let me. His hand reached for mine and this time I didn't pull away. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he said softly. Just permission to try. To take you to dinner without Lucia as a buffer. To spend time together as 2 people who might be falling for each other again. To show you through actions, not words, that I've changed. I looked into his eyes, those dark eyes Lucia had inherited, eyes that had once made me feel like the center of the universe before making me feel disposable. But they were different now. Older. Wiser. Marked by loss and humility and genuine transformation. One dinner, I said finally. But Scott, if you hurt me again, I won't. His thumb traced circles on my hand, sending shivers up my arm. I promise you, Mira, I won't. Our first date was awkward. 2 people who'd created a child together trying to remember how to just be a couple without the weight of history crushing every moment. The second was better. By the 10th, we'd found our rhythm. Not the desperate, all-consuming passion of our early 20s, but something steadier. Something built on conversation and laughter and the comfortable knowledge of each other's flaws. Lucia approved enthusiastically, playing matchmaker with all the subtlety of an 11-year-old. You should kiss him, Mom. He obviously wants you to. Lucia. What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Sienna, surprisingly, also warmed to the idea. She'd adjusted to sharing her father and had grown genuinely fond of Lucia through their letter exchanges and occasional supervised visits. Are you going to be Lucia's stepmom? She asked me once during a family outing. That's a complicated question, I said carefully. Mommy says you will be and she's okay with it now. She has a new boyfriend who's nice. He doesn't have kids though, so I'm still special to him. The simplicity of children's logic never ceased to amaze me. After 18 months of dating, slow, intentional, building trust brick by careful brick, Scott asked me properly. Not in some grand public gesture with photographers and pressure, but on a quiet evening in our apartment after Lucia had gone to sleep. I know I said I wasn't rushing, he began, pulling a small box from his pocket, but we've been doing this dance for 3.5 years now. I want to marry you, Mira. I want to build a life together, messy and complicated and real. I looked at the ring he offered, simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious diamond he'd given Vivian. This was understated, personal, chosen for me rather than for show. What about the girls? I've already asked both of them. Lucia said, and I quote, "It's about time, Scott. I was starting to think you'd never figure it out." Sienna said she thinks you're nice and way better for me than Vivian was. Despite everything, I laughed. She really said that? She really did. Vivian was not amused when Sienna reported back. I studied the ring, then looked up at him. This man who'd hurt me, lost me, and fought his way back through years of persistent growth and change. Yes, I said simply. Let's build that messy, complicated, real life together. 2 years later the wedding was small. Immediate family and close friends only. Lucia served as maid of honor, proud and beaming in her navy dress. Sienna was a junior bridesmaid, having lobbied hard for the position and designing her own dress with Scott's help. We bought a house with space for both girls. A real home where Sienna stayed during Scott's custody time and Lucia lived full-time. The arrangement was unconventional but worked for our blended family. Vivian sent a gift, expensive wine and a card that read simply, "Congratulations. May you build something more honest than what we had." It was the closest to a blessing we'd get from her, and I accepted it with grace. On our wedding night, after the girls were asleep in their rooms and we were finally alone on our balcony overlooking the city, Scott pulled me close. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Not telling me about Lucia from the start? All those years we lost." I considered the question seriously as I had many times before. I regret the pain. The confusion it caused her, the years you missed, the birthdays and first days of school and milestones you can never get back. But I don't regret the path that led us here. Because the man I fell in love with at 23 wasn't ready to be Lucia's father. Hell, he wasn't ready to be anyone's real partner. And now you're exactly the man we need you to be. The father Lucia deserves. The partner I need. It took us a decade and a lot of pain to get here, but maybe that's what we needed, to be broken down and rebuilt into people who could actually make this work. Scott kissed my forehead. "I'm grateful every day that you gave me another chance. That you were brave enough to let me try again. I'm grateful you earned it. That you didn't give up when I pushed you away." A year later we welcomed a son, Gabriel, named after Scott's grandfather. Watching him hold our newborn while Lucia and Sienna crowded around to meet their baby brother, I understood something fundamental about our family. We weren't built from ideal circumstances or perfect choices. We were built from people who kept showing up. Who made mistakes and apologized and tried again. Who chose each other daily even when it was hard. Who learned that love isn't about grand gestures, it's about the small, consistent acts of presence that say, "You matter. I'm here. I'm not leaving." Our family was built from secrets and separations, from public embarrassments and private heartbreaks. From two people who'd loved and lost each other, only to find their way back through the child they'd made together. It wasn't the story I'd imagined when I was 23 and pregnant and terrified. But it was ours, authentic and hard-won and more precious because of everything it had cost us to create it. Have you ever made a choice you thought was protecting someone, only to discover it hurt them in ways you never anticipated? Have you ever gotten a second chance you thought you'd destroyed forever? Life rarely follows the neat narratives we expect. Sometimes the happy ending comes a decade late and costs more than we could have imagined. Sometimes we have to lose everything before we understand what truly matters. But when we're brave enough to try again, when we're willing to rebuild from the rubble of our mistakes, we might discover something more beautiful than what we originally dreamed. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And maybe that's the most important thing of all. If this story touched you, if you've faced impossible choices or found unexpected redemption, share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories about the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of love, forgiveness, and becoming the people we were always meant to be.